Hi, I'm Emma Hunt from PayPal, and I'm here today with Steve Visick, Managing Director and founder of Smartsend, and Hoyen Hooper, the Managing Director of DHL Global Mail Oceania. Over the next half hour, Steve and Hoyen will be sharing their knowledge in the Driving Business Online webinar, Signed, Sealed and Delivered, Shipping Tips from the Experts. They'll cover everything from the basics of packaging, the different options available for domestic and international shipping, and also provide tips for those businesses looking to start out selling and shipping internationally. Thank you both for joining me, and welcome to everyone who's joined the webinar today. Driving Business Online is a program of webinars, events and an educational website, all designed to help Australian businesses compete and succeed online. Being online offers a unique set of opportunities to the Australian business. The opportunity to sell to a wider range of customers, and also to do so without the need for large or expensive retail presence, being just two of them. But being online also offers unique challenges, and one of those is shipping. So with this in mind, today we bring you a webinar that's dedicated solely to logistics and shipping. Over the next half hour, we're going to be covering a lot of information, but we will make the webinar available to you afterwards. We'll be emailing that out, and it will also be being published on the Driving Business Online website. If you'd like to ask questions, there is a section on your screen where you can do this, and we'll aim to answer as many as possible as we can after the event, and we'll also publish these on the Driving Business Online website as well. Plus, both Steve and Hoyen have kindly agreed to take questions directly, and their contact details will be displayed later on to you as well. So our first speaker this afternoon is Steve Visick from Smartsend. Steve has been working in the shipping and logistics industry since 1992. In 2006, Steve founded Smartsend Courier Service, who focus on providing competitive prices to low-volume freight and courier users, and a simple method for door-to-door deliveries throughout Australia. Steve, welcome.
Thanks, Emma. Today I'll be speaking about three topics: packaging, the delivery, and transport costs. So if we get into it, the first topic, packaging. If there's one thing you take out of today's presentation, it's don't skimp on packaging. If you can, spend a little more on packaging because it will help in the long run and avoid heartache and replacement costs. We've got some examples here of some bad packaging. So as you can see in the first photo here, the item looks quite well packaged. It's shrink wrapped onto a pallet. But as you can see by the third photo, the item is actually a rather large photocopier, and those types of items certainly need to be in padding foam inside their original carton. If that's not possible, if it's a used item, then certainly still padding and foam and a box needs to be used, and the item needs to be shrink wrapped onto a pallet. So that item actually was damaged in transport, something's knocked against it. The next photo is as you can see, it's a basin, and someone's tried to do the right thing. They put the basin into a box, but unfortunately they haven't used any padding or foam around that item, and hence the box most likely has been dropped, and the item has received shock travelled through the box, and hence it's been damaged. And the third item, as you can see, it's a piece of furniture, and unfortunately one of the legs has been broken off. Those types of items, furniture is not easy to transport, and those types of items really need to be in a fully enclosed box with obviously protection on the inside as well. Now there are some items are easier to transport than others, and if you are starting out or thinking about starting a business, or you're maybe looking at starting a new product line, just have a think about the types of products that you want to sell. Some things that are easy to transport are, for example, brown goods in their original packaging, so things like DVD players, TVs, computers, those types of items that come in their original packaging, very easy to transport. Clothing, fashion, in parcels or satchels, very easy to transport. If you need your fashion to be hung during transport, so there's no creases in the fashion, then you need a specialised fashion hanging service for that. And not all carriers provide that service, and it does come at an additional charge as well. But if the items are just in parcels or satchels, that's fine. And things like books and stationery, things that are quite sturdy and packaged into boxes, again, very easy to transport. Things that are a little bit more difficult, such as white goods, large white goods like refrigerators, dryers, washing machines, those types of items, particularly things like refrigerators, although you might package them in their original packaging, they very easily topple over in transport. So those types of items need to be shrink wrapped onto pallets. That way transport companies can easily use forklifts to load and unload the goods in and out of vehicles during their trip. Also long items, things over 1.8 metres, they can be difficult to transport. Just keep in the back of your mind, most courier vans, standard courier vans are generally 1.8 metres in length. So once an item gets over that length, the goods will travel through in a truck and with other items that are quite large or bulky. So again, package your goods quite well if they're long items. And obviously things like fragile and glass items, ceramic, porcelain, again, you need a lot of packaging around those products. Make sure they're quite densely packaged with again, lots of packaging inside the box because they're not easy to transport. If you are selling valuable items, try not to advertise what the contents of the packages are. So if you can at all, try and use plain packaging, brown boxes, white boxes, no logos on the outside if you can. Basically, you want to try and keep the goods away from prying eyes. So if you do have a product that you still want to use the original packaging and it has a logo on the outside, maybe consider wrapping brown paper around the outside and package it tightly with tape. That's probably a good idea. From time to time, you will get damage in transport. It's an unfortunate part of transportation in Australia. And quite often when that occurs, we do hear this line from the odd customer, but my goods made it all the way from China in a shipping container with no problems. Well, that may be the case, but you need to understand that there is a difference between shipping goods in containers into Australia to your door as opposed to freight and courier services and moving shipments around Australia. As you can see by the stats there, the number of times goods are handled are quite minimal in container transportation into Australia, up to 5 times. But when you're talking about domestic freight transport throughout Australia, it can be up to 3 times that number. Australia is a very large continent and there are a lot of transport links that need to occur. So goods are in and out of a lot of trailers, depending on how long the distance is for delivery. So just keep that in the back of your mind again when you're packaging goods. We're on to the next topic, which is delivery options. Just some tips, I suppose, to keep in mind when we're talking about the delivery address and goods being delivered to your customer. When you're using a courier and freight service, you cannot specify PO box addresses. In some circumstances, you can do that. However, in most cases, unless you're dealing with Australia Post, that is not the case, and you will need to provide a street address for a courier company to deliver the goods to. If you are using a tracking service with a courier company, the barcode on the label is very important. So just make sure that it's clear. There's no wrinkles in the barcode on the label. Otherwise, the transport company scanners have difficulty scanning those barcodes, and hence the goods cannot be tracked. If you're taping labels onto boxes or satchels, then try to use clear tape so that even if you put the tape over the barcode, the scanners can still read the barcodes. And if you're a small, medium-sized business, we would definitely recommend using a laser printer for your labels. The laser printers give the precision in the barcoding that's required for the transport company scanners to be able to read those barcodes correctly. If you're using bubble jets and inkjets, quite often the printout can be a little bit fuzzy in the barcodes. And also, if you consider if goods get wet if it rains, the labels can run, and so the ink runs and the barcode cannot be read, and also sometimes the delivery address cannot be read as well. And finally, with the addresses, just make sure that you actually put a full address in the booking. So things like if the goods are going to a business address, please put the business name on there. Don't just put the contact name at a business address. You need to actually stipulate the business address as well. If it's a high-rise building, for example, you need to put the level number, what level the business is on or the person is on. And obviously just basic things like street number, street name, and if there's a unit number, please ensure you put that as well. And finally, also just include the phone number of the receiver as well as a contact name. Sometimes the delivery depot needs to contact the receiver for whatever reason, and it makes the delivery process a lot simpler if they have a phone number on the booking. If you follow those steps, generally the delivery will happen quite easily. But if you don't, you can incur some extra charges. And just so you're aware, these are some of the charges that can be incurred by customers. The first one, return to sender charges. Just be aware that carriers don't hold goods for long periods of time in depots. Some can hold goods as little as 2 days, and if they don't hear from a receiver or a customer to advise what to do with that shipment, then the goods will be returned to the sender, and you will bear those costs as well. Redelivery charges, they occur if a driver cannot deliver the goods to a delivery address and he needs to redeliver those goods at another time. Just be aware of that. And also redirection charges. If you stipulate a wrong address for a customer, or even a slightly wrong address, there can be redirection charges which will be passed on to you as well. Overall, it's just a poor customer experience, so try to do the right thing up front. Ask your customers for as much information as possible, and that will limit those issues. If you're sending out bulky items, heavy, large items, for example, the refrigerator that I mentioned before, or something along those lines, crated items, it's probably best to talk to your carrier before you start sending them about the best method to deliver those goods, and try and get them delivered on the first attempt. Quite often you will need possibly a tail lift truck service to deliver those goods. Anything that's over 30 kilos in weight is generally the rule. It changes a little bit depending on the carrier, but generally 30 kilos. Even a two-man lift service is available as well, where the carrier will actually send out 2 people to effect delivery and make sure those goods are delivered easily. And most carriers these days, they have the ability to track goods, and we would certainly recommend using a carrier that has that ability. It just provides peace of mind to you and your customer. So if it's there, we certainly recommend trying to use those types of services. Carriers update their tracking quite regularly, and usually with daily updates. If you check the carrier's website and put in the tracking number by around 9 a.m, 9:30, as late as 10 a.m. in the morning, it generally will advise whether those goods are out for delivery with the driver that day to your customer. So just be aware of that. And one thing with regional tracking or remote deliveries, sometimes there is a lack of transparency in some of those areas. The agents that deliver out in those locations, or even the transport companies, may not have PDAs or scanners to be able to track those goods and scan them. Sometimes they use a manual system where they just write down the details on a manifest and pass that on in due course, generally a few days later. If that occurs, it's just a matter of speaking to the customer service department with those carriers, and they'll be able to assist you through a manual process they have to let you know what's happening with that delivery. And finally, transport costs. Just a few tips around transport that you should be aware of. Deadweight versus cubic weight charging. All carriers will charge the greater of either the deadweight or the volumetric weight. And what we mean by volumetric weight is the cubic weight of an item, and that is generally based on the dimensions of that item or the size of that item. And most carriers will use a formula to work out what the cubic weight is, and that formula is generally the length by the width by the height of the item, multiplied by a cubic conversion factor. And most carriers in Australia use 250 kilos per cubic metre. And to give you an example, if the dead weight of an item is 10 kilos, for example, and the dimensions are 40 by 40 by 40 centimetres, then in that situation, as you can see by that formula there, the cubic weight is 16 kilos, and because that is greater than the actual weight of the item at 10, the carrier will charge you at 16 kilos in weight. Now, just be aware that it sounds a little bit complex. However, if you do use a quoting system provided by your carrier, in most cases, as long as you enter the correct weight and dimensions, then that system will work out the correct price for you. You don't have to worry necessarily about cubic conversion. Just something you should be aware of, though. A tip on cutting down on freight costs: if you can, try and package your goods as densely as possible. So that minimises cubic charging. If, for example, you've always used a certain size box to send your goods out in, maybe consider sourcing boxes that are slightly smaller in size and packaging the goods densely within those boxes. That will cut down on cubic charging and hence the overall freight cost that you'll pay. But just keep in mind that you don't want to sacrifice the consistency of the packaging, otherwise you potentially could start receiving damages to the goods. So just ensure that, again, the goods are still packaged very well. If you send out goods that are quite light or small in size, generally under 5 kilos in dead weight or cubic weight, you can receive fixed pricing from most carriers. Generally, the pricing categories are up to 1 kilo in weight, between 1 and 3, and 3 and 5 kilos. Just be aware, though, if the goods do end up being over 5 kilos in dead weight or cubic weight, the pricing can start increasing substantially after 5 kilos, particularly for express services where there's a 1 or 2 day delivery time frame Australia-wide. So it's in your interest to make sure that you do declare the correct weight and dimensions, otherwise you could get a quite hefty bill after the fact. So just be aware of that. Shipping pricing can help increase your sales. There are various options for postage that you can promote to your customers, things like 24-hour delivery, free shipping, discounted or free shipping for orders over a certain value. Fixed price is quite popular, and also real-time freight pricing. You can also combine 2 or more options. For example, you might offer free shipping for local deliveries and real-time freight pricing for all other areas Australia-wide, so you can have a couple of combinations there. I'm going to talk about real-time freight pricing in this presentation. There are many solutions available, and usually most of them are free to use. Real-time freight pricing can be included on any web page, in your website checkout, or in an eBay listing. It basically improves buyer purchase rates and customer satisfaction. Buyers know exactly what they're going to pay to their destination. And the good thing for merchants is real-time freight pricing ensures your freight costs are covered, even if the customer is located in a remote area or a rural area. It's very good as opposed to fixed price options, because if, for example, you quote $20 as a fixed price Australia-wide to your customers, if you send goods out to a very remote area, you might get all of a sudden slugged with a $100 bill, for example, from a carrier, and all of a sudden you're out of pocket $80. So just be aware of the difference there in real-time freight pricing as opposed to a fixed price method, or again, you may offer a combination of options there. Smartsend has 2 options in the real-time postage area. Smart API, that provides real-time freight quotes anywhere in Australia to and from any location. It has an automated booking process, so that when your buyer purchases goods via your checkout, they'll pay for the cost of the goods, they'll pay for the cost of the freight, all in one transaction to you, and then that booking will automatically be processed with Smartsend. So there's no manual entry by the merchant or yourself. It also produces carrier-compliant barcoded consignment labels in a PDF format, so you can easily print those PDF labels and stick them immediately onto your goods ready to go when the driver comes to collect. The other option is a smart freight calculator. It's a more basic version of the Smart API. It provides real-time freight quotes. It's very simple to use. You don't need a web developer to integrate this onto your website. Any novice can do it in a simple 3-step process on our website. It only takes about a minute and a half to generate a calculator. And it's colour customisable as well, so it fits in with your web page or eBay listing. Look, Smartsend's very passionate about helping start-up and small and medium businesses succeed. We're very honoured to be part of the PayPal process in this presentation, and we offer free shipping advice to all PayPal customers, so you can contact us at sales@smartsend.com.au. And we currently have an offer for PayPal customers that sign up with Smartsend before the 15th of May. You can receive a 15% discount on our standard casual rates. Just go to the link there in the slide, smartsend.com.au/VIP client inquiry.cfm, and enter Driving Business Onlne as the promotional offer. So that's pretty much it for me, Emma. Thank you.
Fantastic. Steve, what a great offer. Thank you. What a great presentation. I can certainly say that when I receive items that I've bought online that have been packaged well, it really makes a difference to how I perceive the company and whether I'm going to buy from them again. It has a huge impact on your whole shopping experience. So paying that little extra to make sure that your goods arrive safe and in one place makes really good business sense. Now I'd like to introduce Hoi-En Hooper from DHL Global Mail. Hoi-En has responsibility for the business operations for DHL Global Mail in Australia and New Zealand. She's also spent much of her life in New Zealand, so is ideally placed to explain the benefits of starting, selling and shipping into this market. DHL is specialist in international postage, direct marketing and digital services. Hoi-En, welcome to our webinar today.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, the basics of international shipping. So let's start with that. So now that you've decided to ship overseas, you need to know what options are available to you. So let's start with the shipping options. First, you have bulk freight. Bulk freight is where you consolidate all your items into one consignment and you send to one address. And you have the option of using air freight and sea freight. Next, you have courier option. Now, courier option, a lot of us know courier as express, and as the name indicates, express is all about speed. So if you need to get your items there very quickly, courier is most suited to your requirement. Then next, you have the postal option. When you use the postal option, your item will be sent by the postal office in the country of destination. The postal option is most suited to low value items, and generally it takes a little bit longer than courier, and but it is a very cost effective way of sending items to consumers. Please note too that when you use the postal network, you are able to send to a PO box address. So following on from that, let's see how the different services stack up against each other in terms of cost versus time. So as you can see in that diagram, courier sits right at the top. Courier is your most costly option, but it means that you will get your item there the quickest, and you get your items delivered to a physical address. This is then followed by air freight. Now note that air freight is only an option if you're sending very heavy shipments. You'll be looking at about 45 kilos, 50 kilos upwards, and your per kilo cost will go down as you ship heavier items. Then of course you have your postal option. Now, I've mentioned previously that postal option is a cost-effective way of sending parcels to consumers. It costs less than courier, but obviously it's going to take a few more days. And sea freight, similar to air freight, will be really cost-effective if you are sending a very heavy shipment. It takes definitely, compared to air freight, it will take a longer time to get there. Now, so before deciding on the different shipping option, you probably want to think of the following: the value of your item. Now, this is really important because there are certain services that offer you cover and certain that don't, so you need to know how quickly do you want to get your items to the country of destination. Do you need to know, the whereabouts of your parcel at any point in time in terms of the visibility during the journey of the parcel on the way to the destination? And somehow, do you need your recipient to acknowledge the receipt of your item? So those are some of the questions you might want to think about before deciding on your mode of distribution. So now that you have decided which option that you're going to use, let's look at what else is important when shipping overseas. Firstly, packaging. Well, at the end of the day, what we're trying to achieve here is that you want to make sure that your item is securely packaged and safely packaged, and will arrive at the will arrive at the destination safely, basically. Now, in Steve's earlier presentation, he has given some very good tips on packaging, so I will not be covering it here, but the standard stuff applies, making sure you wrap your fragile materials individually, making sure that you remove all address and shipping labels from your packages, and making sure that you use the appropriate customs form and fully declare the contents and value of your item. Now, last but not least, the cubic weight, which Steve mentioned previously, also applies for international shipping, so please note that. So now, what about customs requirements and prohibited items? Now, custom requirements differ from country to country. So it is wise for you to have an idea in terms of the duties and taxes that may apply to you and what you can and cannot send overseas. So it is best if you speak with your logistics provider, and they will be able to help you. Now, in terms of what you can and cannot send overseas, again, consult your logistics provider. Some common items will be aerosols and flammable goods. Please also take note that certain items with high alcohol content cannot be sent overseas too. So make sure you check with your logistic provider. So of all the shipping options available to you, I want to explain why the postal network best suited to online retailers. First of all, When you use a postal network, there is no minimum or maximum volume. So practically, you can send 1 item, 2 items, or even 100 items, and your items still will be delivered by the postal office. That also means that you can easily test other markets. I mean, you can send an item into Russia, for example, and monitor transit time, and also find out more about the custom requirements. Once you're happy with that, you can then practically, launch your new products into the market. Now, in terms of visibility, you can choose to track your items and receive a notice of posting as well as delivery confirmation. Now, with the postal network, you can choose different delivery services. There are many services, many service level available to you. You can choose delivery with or without signature. You can have parcels either tracked or non-tracked. Then, of course, it's about cost. Now, cost efficiency is all about relativity. At the end of the day, you do not want your delivery cost to exceed the value of your item. For example, if you're sending, a pair of sandals to New Zealand, for example, the last thing you want to do is to pay, more than what you pay for the pair of sandals. So where do you start? Now, why should you start selling internationally? Now, according to the research done by IHS Global Insight for DHL, it is a way to ensure long-term growth for your business and to improve your competitiveness. Now, if you like a copy of this research paper, please email us. We'll be more than happy to email you a copy. For just for your information, for 31% of SMEs, the main reason to develop international activities is linked to long-term business growth. They have access to know-how and technology and the diversification of the product portfolio. And 39% of international top performers have actually increased their share of exports by more than 20% in the last 3 years. The research shows us there is a growing focus on international trading among SMEs. They also stated that there are 3 key challenges faced by exporters. Okay, so you have the lack of knowledge of foreign markets because every market is different. You have high customs duties. Again, previously I mentioned that customs requirements are different from country to country, and establishing contacts with foreign partners and customers. Therefore, it is very important to choose a reputable and reliable logistics provider when you are entering a new market. After all, they have been doing this for a very long time, and they know how to help you to ship to those countries and to those markets. So if you're thinking of shipping overseas, where would you go? New Zealand, of course. Now here are some insights I would like to share with you from the PwC Digital Media Research 2012. 1.9 million New Zealanders aged 15 and over made purchases online, and this is 47% of the population. 3.19 billion is spent on online spend, and which is about 5% of the overall retail value, and 35% of spend is on international websites, and Australian website ranking at the top of the list. Key products that Kiwis are interested in will be electronics, clothing and both. And obviously they have very similar buying behavior as Australians. They care about convenience, cost and delivery performance. Last but not least, there's no language barrier. So now that I've convinced you to ship to New Zealand, what do you need to know? Well, first of all, the customs threshold is 400 New Zealand dollars. What that means is that when you send an item that exceeds that threshold, duties and taxes will apply, and you will have to pay for those. We partner with New Zealand Post for final mile delivery in New Zealand, and New Zealand Post offers a whole range of services to suit different needs. For example, which I've briefly mentioned before, you have your tracking, you have delivery with or without signature, you have cut to call if receiver is not at home, to arrange for second attempt in terms of delivery. We also able to provide you a returns management for undeliverable items. So if you'd like more information, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank PayPal for giving us the opportunity to share our insights on international shipping. And thank you for watching this webinar. We would like to offer you free consultation and a 10% off our tariff for shipments to New Zealand.
Thank you, Hoyen. Thank you for that offer. That's a great offer for everyone who's joined us today, and thank you for another great presentation. I'd like to thank Hoyen and Steve for coming along today and sharing their knowledge on shipping. I've certainly learnt a lot, and I'm sure that everyone who's joined us today has too. It's such an important part of an end-to-end e-commerce shopping experience. Now, thank you to all of you who've asked questions through the webinar today. Shortly, we will be looking through those and answering as many of them as we can on the Driving Business Online website. You'll also receive a copy of this presentation, as I mentioned earlier, via email, which will include the contact details of our speakers today. We hope you've enjoyed today's Driving Business Online webinar, and if you have any feedback, please feel free to email us at inquiries@drivingbusinessonline.com.au. Thank you for watching.